For this video, we get to talk about our kids being disrespectful. Now, our kids being disrespectful is really a broad umbrella topic, and there's a lot of things included in this. So, I'm going to give you a couple of examples showing you some ideas of how to apply the principles, and then you get to take the principles and apply it in your specific situation. Now, this is one of those places where the things that Janet and I might advise somebody to do or suggest might seem a little bit extreme or a little bit harsh. We do feel like basic respect is a big deal. And that if we have kids who are struggling to show us basic respect within our home, that the earned outcome of that should be pretty uncomfortable for them. Every human being, especially a human being who is a parent and working their butt off for their child and sacrificing their time, their energy, their emotional space, all of those different things, respect should be given. And that some of our defiant kids just are super disrespectful as well. It's almost like that's a boundary that they're testing to see if they can have some control in how they'll treat you and whether you will stand up for yourself or not. This is one of the places where it may be the most struggle to find the thing that works the best. This may be one of those places where you experience a lot of having to choose your hard, to let your child experience the uncomfortable earned consequences of their choices or to let them be disrespectful to you long term. Something that we want to communicate to parents is that our kids wanting to engage in a quality relationship with us is out of our control. In terms of our circles of control, that one is out of our circle of control. And once again, that stinks. We love these little stinkers so much. Even though they've been hard, even though they've been disrespectful, even though they've been defiant, we see them as our child still. And we love them still. And we want to have relationships with people that we love. We also don't want them to hate us or to feel like they're going to go to therapy to talk about us for the rest of their lives. We just don't want that. And so it's really hard for us to be firm on this boundary. But one of the things that we wish we could communicate and help all parents understand is, do you really want to be in a relationship where you are mistreated over and over and over and over and over again? Is that really a relationship? Can there be deep connection there? Can there be safety and vulnerability and honesty and love in that kind of environment? If you think about a plant, the soil that the plant is planted in is a huge factor on whether that plant will flourish or not. And the soil of disrespect is not soil that the plant of good relationships grow in. If you are in a relationship with someone who is constantly disrespecting you, you may be trying to act like everything's okay, but deep down you're feeling hurt, you're feeling betrayed, you're feeling resentful, and that is going to come across in the relationship. You're also not doing them any favors because you're teaching them that in a relationship, it's not give and take. It's not a two-way relationship. It's I treat you however I want, and you do whatever I want, regardless of how I treat you kind of relationship. So those are some mindset things that we need to get in touch with. So we may have a story in our mind that we have to have a relationship with our child no matter what. And we need to shift that to, I want to have relationships with people that there's mutual respect and safety and honoring in those relationships. And we may feel like if I just am patient enough and loving enough and a doormat enough for them to walk over, that eventually they will just feel that unconditional love and just pop back in to being in an open, warm relationship with me. And the reality is that that we train people how to interact with us. And that if we are a doormat at the beginning, we will be a doormat in the middle and at the end, and there will never be that give and take. But that it is okay for you to say, I will engage in relationships with people who can honor my boundaries and know that I will honor their boundary as well. One more analogy, and then we'll get into disrespect a little bit more. We want to see relationships between two humans. We call this the lantern relationship. And we also talk about lantern communication. And anyway, so you may have heard of this terminology. It may be new to you. So picture that you are seated at a table with another individual, and there's a lantern in between the two of you. In relationships, and the goal of the lantern and of this relationship are that both of you are illuminated and both of you get to enjoy the light. In relationships where your child is super disrespectful to you, but you continue just doing great things for them, that's like scooting the lantern over to their side of the table and only they are illuminated and you're left in the dark. So they get what they want, they're honored, and you're not. Now, if the relationship is the opposite, which is when we see parents being really controlling or harsh or demeaning, and their kids aren't seen, they don't have a voice, all of those different kinds of things, that's like moving the lantern back over to our side of the table, where only we're illuminated and they're not. So we want to get that lantern into the middle where both are seen, both are heard, both are validated, both are honored, both are offering respect to one another. And with individuals that are not engaging in that kind of relationship with us, there may come a point where we do not have a relationship, which is frightening to think of that with our kids. Now, what we have seen when coaching parents is that if they are using the wiser parenting principles, that 98% of the time, the relationship becomes incredibly healthy, lifelong. That there's a very, very small percentage, and I don't want you to get trapped into the negative thinking that our brains tend to do of, I will be that percentage. So 98 is your story, okay? That 98% of the times that the children will learn, oh, this is how I engage in a relationship with my mom, but I also don't feel controlled by her. I don't feel demeaned by her. I feel like she sees my experience and she validates my experience. And so they eventually come around. It may take a while. Remember, timetable is out of our control. Okay, so let's go back to the wiser parenting principles and how we use this in terms of respect or disrespect. So we feel that the warmth here is hard, incredibly difficult to try to understand where your child's coming from and why they would be disrespectful to you. But can you get curious about their story? Are they having a hard time emotionally regulating? Are they struggling with self-love and self-compassion and they're taking it out on you because you're the safe space? Are they wired to have a harder time in interpersonal relationships and they're getting to learn with you? And their journey to learn those interpersonal skills is harder than their peers and they're struggling more than their peers. So you can see just in those three examples that there could be a place of curiosity to try to understand their world and what was going on. For my daughter, when she was younger and we were really struggling, we could see that there was possibly a diagnosis that was undiagnosed, and so trying to have compassion that we were trying to figure that out. She'd had some trauma in her history. We adopted her, and there's a backstory, and so we were trying to be compassionate about the trauma. We could also see that she was just wired to want to be in control all the time. And so we were trying to have compassion for that. And we had a therapist who helped us see that every child, regardless of whether they're born into trauma or they're not, comes kind of with their own story. And for some kids, the story is, will I still be loved even when I'm this bad? And testing whether they are testing how bad they can be and still be loved. And so it's almost like this unsatiable question that they're coming to you for an answer of, am I loved even when I treat you like this or like this or like this? And so trying to have compassion that they are just trying to have some questions answered. So there's several ideas for you on what may be going on and having some compassion for their story and for their journey. But once again, we can have that warmth and that compassion and that validation while still having clear, firm boundaries ourselves. So get curious about what's going on in their world and share those things that you're seeing. Like, are you struggling to be kind because you are struggling to even love yourself? Are you feeling like you're a bad kid and so you're acting like a bad kid? Help me understand. And so getting curious with them about that. Okay, now even if they have trauma or a diagnosis or a story or all of those things, you still get to move into the I, which is identify your boundaries. Now, this is where I am going to be a little bit bossy and say you deserve to be treated respectfully. Even if you struggle with your own self concept and your own self love and confidence, you are a human being, and we believe that every human being has the right to be treated respectfully. So, that is an okay boundary to set, that you will not be yelled at or cussed at if that's a big deal to you, or have your property disrespected, or have things taken without your permission, or have kids saying that they're just entitled to all of the things. Like I said, there's a million different forms of disrespect. So, what disrespect are you experiencing in your home right now? Is that setting off an alarm in your own body, telling you that that boundary is being crossed? And what is that alarm about? And let's get curious about it. And what actions are leading to that alarm going off? And that's going to help you identify the boundary. So if I'm getting bugged when my daughter is trying to control me, that tells me that one of my boundaries is that I get to make choices for me and you get to make choices for you. And that we understand that and we respect that in each other. Or if I am being, if I have a child who, like I said, all these things come from real life just within like the last month. If I have a child coming to me and just saying, hey, this is where I'm going and this is what I'm doing, and not a, hey, is it okay if I do this? And these are the plans. Does this time work or does this time work? That when I feel that like irritation and that resentment pop up, that I get curious about what was crossed right then. Like, oh, I'm just being told as if I'm like a roommate, that he's like, I'm just informing you of where I'm going, rather than a 12-year-old child who's checking to see if this works for the family or not. So just get curious about that, and identify what those boundaries are and be honest with what they are with your kiddos. But remember that we're only sharing these things like once. And then we're just moving into allowing them to have some control. So they get to decide for themselves. So this is the S of whether they will Be respectful or not. Talk respectfully, honor your boundaries, all of those things or not. And then you just get to move into the E of letting them experience the earned outcome. So if they're constantly being disrespectful of your property or taking things without permission, then you figure out a way for them to not have access to your stuff, or they get to pay for the things that they take. There's like a rental fee. Or if they're being physically aggressive, my daughter was physically aggressive for years. And whenever she was emotionally dysregulated, I became the human punching bag. And so what I would do in that moment was separate myself from her, lock my door, and turn on music, blast it right by the door so that I couldn't hear her knocking and pounding and screaming, and so that I could communicate to her, like, you can have as much drama out there as you want, but in here I'm going to be having a really good time and a dance party and reading a book and all that stuff. And that's the earned consequence for physically being disrespectful. If they're verbally disrespectful, you can come up with another consequence. But one of the things that we've often recommended to people is that if our kids are not honoring basic respect, so it's a basic human right, it's a basic thing that we should be doing in the home, even if we hate each other, we can still have respect, like a cold mutual respect for each other, and just leave it there. That if basic respect is not given, then extra things are not happening. And if you think about the natural outcome, are you delighted to pay for piano lessons and dance lessons for somebody who's constantly disrespecting you? Are you happy to drive them places? Are you happy to set up play dates? Are you happy to do the tuitions and pay for the phone and all of those different things? Like, look at the different ages. With my little child, was I happy to play games with them and take them to the park or stop by McDonald's for treats? Or with my older child, am I happy to let them go play at somebody else's house or have somebody over, or to let them use the phone or let them use my computer or our Xbox? No, the reality is no, that when we're feeling disrespected and we continue to give and give and give and give, we build up resentment, and that will destroy your relationship, which is the whole reason why you're trying to do this, right? So we've got to be honest at what we are and are not okay doing with a child who is being disrespectful, and then let them experience the earned outcome of that. So maybe it's that we aren't paying for the dance lessons and we aren't paying again until we have seen respect for a month. And this is what respect looks like. And these are the basic things: that you are not rude to me, that you honor our basic boundaries. So you're relinquishing control, like over a lot of things, and we're getting down to just like the basic boundaries. And when I've seen that, then I'm happy to pay for those things again, to let you have your phone again, to use the Xbox again, to play games with you again, like whatever their age is and whatever the extra things are for them. You're happy to do those things again when respect is shown consistently. And this is like the honesty thing, like respect is earned in drops and it's lost in buckets. So if they are disrespectful, then man, we're back to square one, where those things, those extra things are gone again until respect happens again. Now, like I said, this seems extreme and this seems harsh and this seems difficult, but the long-term consequences of you living in a relationship where you are not respected, and you're not even asking for the moon here, you are asking for basic human respect. You aren't asking for them to adopt your same value system or do everything the way that you think that they should do it or be perfect. You're just saying, I need to feel safe within my own home. That's a basic thing. Okay. And that's appropriate. And And so this isn't harsh, this isn't extreme. Not feeling safe in your own home is a big deal. That is extreme. And so the earned outcome is going to kind of match that. And that's going to stink for them. And they may fight you on that, and they may try to get you to back down, and they may be rude. They may try all sorts of tactics to get you to back down on that boundary, because experiencing ownership of that is going to be incredibly uncomfortable for them. And they're very used to you being the doormat and letting them walk over you. And you standing up and saying, I love me enough to not be treated this way, is going to kind of rock their world. Now, here's the amazing thing about this, is that if you stick with this, even through the hard, that you are going to see a shift in the way that they interact with you. And then that's going to open you guys up to having fun instead of fights. For you to be able to freely love them and feel warmth towards them instead of constantly fighting that negative thinking that's coming in because you're resentful, because you're being disrespected all the time, yet still doing things for them. And this is also going to be super healthy modeling for them. For you to say, hey, I love myself enough to be respected. And I hope you love yourself enough to be respected. So say that this child later got into a relationship with somebody who wanted to be disrespectful, and they have seen you stand up for yourself. They now know, first of all, what respect is, what disrespect is, that humans deserve to be treated respectfully, and that you can stand up for yourself. And so they can stand up for themselves. So this is incredibly healthy for them to see this skill modeled, to learn this. Now, this is also an incredibly healthy way for them to learn that interpersonal relationships are give and take, and there are two people in it. We fear our kids having success in their future, being happy, healthy adults, and being able to carry on long-term healthy relationships is part of that success. And so you being firm about how you will be treated, showing them that there are two people in this relationship and that both people need to be respected and need to be honored and need to have their own control, will show them how to interact in their human relationships when they get older. This is incredibly healthy for them. It is hard. We are asking you to be a strong leader for your family in a situation that is more difficult than what your friends are facing. And it makes me emotional that it is hard for you. And I see you, and my heart goes out to you because I'm living it myself. And I know what it's like to have to do this and how incredibly difficult it is. And that you've been called to a task that is bigger than what you feel like you are made of and capable of handling. Yet this is where you are, and this is your role, and your child needs you to stand up for you so that they can learn. And so if it means that they don't get to go on the fun family things because you're only happy to take people who are kind, so be it. If it means that they don't have access to their phone or to you, or if it means that you aren't sitting down and playing games with them or paying for their dance lessons or whatever, so be it. It won't be this way forever. It will be this way for a period of time, and then things will start to get better and it will start to heal. And then you'll be in a place where all that time that was fighting and resentment and dealing with your negative thoughts will be for connecting and for fun memories and for joy. That will be so much better for your relationship long term than not standing up for yourself. So that's respect. And that's an intense one. And so you decide, but the earned outcome needs to match the intensity of what's happening. And so if there is great disrespect happening, then the ownership of that should be great. If it's minor disrespect and you can handle it by just tweaking a couple things, then you do that. But it's got to match, and the ownership has got to be theirs, and that choice has got to be a problem for them and not for you, and you've got to stand up for yourself, and you've got to be able to feel safe within your own home. That is totally appropriate.